Sorry, I'm just waiting for my screen to open here. Okay, so we're going to get started. So thanks everybody for joining us. Good afternoon and welcome to the Accelerate Your Business at Lunch HR workshop. This session is brought to you by the Accelerate Business Recovery Virtual Hub, sponsored by Desjardins Insurance and partially funded by Employment Ontario, the Ontario government, and the Canadian government. I'm delighted to introduce our guest speaker today, Jody Zigelstein. Jody is a 24-year leader and veteran in the HR community and is the Chief HR Innovator and founder of Enliven HR Consulting. Jody plays a major role in her clients' businesses by delivering innovative, sustainable, and strategic HR programs and solutions designed to unleash leadership potential, drive performance, increase organizational effectiveness, and steer business results. Her expertise is in the creation of unique leadership, employee, and high-performance development initiatives, including employee engagement and employee experience initiatives, executive coaching, compensation programs, action-based learning projects, succession planning, and talent assessment programs. Jody engages small, medium, and large local, national, and multinational clients in a variety of industries. Jody's experience comes from both working with clients for more than half her career, as well as in human resources in the corporate world, where she has worked for various organizations. And that with that, Jody, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I am super excited to be back with Aurora Chamber. We did something similar to this program, I want to say maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, something like that. Sandra's nodding. And so it's really nice to be back working with some of the businesses. I'm hoping we have some people who attended our sessions way back in the day, but if we don't, that's great too. So the way that we kind of run our sessions is I want it to be really experiential for you. And so we tend to just open it up for questions throughout. If I find we're running short of time, what I may say is, okay, let's park that particular question. Let's come back to it at the end. I tend to leave some time at the very end so that I can stay on the line for a little bit longer. But for those people that have meetings, I just want to, really respect your time, throughout the hour and a half that we have together today. And hopefully you'll join our future sessions as well. We've basically got one running per week with the exception of March break. So hopefully you'll be able to attend some of the other ones as well. So again, it's a 3-part series. So today we're actually going to be focusing on building organizational culture and engaged and productive teams. Next time we get together, we're going to be talking about a deep dive at the concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that kind of as buzzwords right now. I want to kind of shed some light on it, give you some ideas for programming that is really, really simple and not overcomplicating things. I think sometimes we overcomplicate, and I don't think we need to in this particular space. And then we're going to round out the program by talking about attracting, developing, and retaining talent. Okay, so hopefully you'll get a lot out of this series. I'm hoping you'll be able to attend most of it. But if not, Sandra, you're recording all of them, correct? Yes, okay, super. All right, so in terms of logistics during the session, we always ask just for you to mute your line, just so that others can hear full volume, make sure that they're hearing us at all times. If there's any technical difficulties, if you just drop us a note in the chat, we'll address it fairly quickly. There's also the ability, if you have any bandwidth issues, you can always call in through the phone line as well. Okay, so sometimes that's an easier way. If your video is glitching and things like that, it's usually, the video and the audio working together. You got to love this whole technology thing, but we'll make the best of it. How's that? So again, welcome to workshop 1 of the series. And again, we're going to be really focusing on organizational culture today and really talking about engaged teams. How do we create productive teams? And a lot of it comes down to how do we really look at our culture overall and the level of engagement that we have within the organizations that we're serving. So let's kind of start out just by doing some quick intros. So Sandra, you did a great introduction of myself, so thank you for that. I wanted to introduce you to Danson Barnes, who is also on the Enliven team. So what I want to do is I'm going to give Danson the floor to introduce himself, and then I'm going to go forward one slide so that we have an opportunity for all of you to introduce yourselves to us.
Thanks, Jody. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Danson Barnes. I've been with Enliven for the past 7 months. Was in the Middle East working as a HR generalist there for close to 10 years, and moved into this country a year back. So here I am with Enliven, and hope all the 3 sessions will be good for. Thanks, Jody.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, so here's what I want to ask you. So in order to introduce yourselves to us, we're going to do a little bit of culture dive right now. So what I want you to do is introduce yourself by name, role, and organization. And then I want you to think about one word that you would use to describe your organization's culture. One word only, okay? Sound good? Okay, who wants to go first? And if you have the ability to turn your camera on, I love seeing people. I don't love talking to black squares with names, but if you're not comfortable, that's totally fine. But I do like to see faces if we can. Anybody want to go first? Shauna.
Yep. Hi, I am Shauna Murray. I'm the Member Relations Ambassador at the Aurora Chamber of Commerce. I would describe our organization's culture with the word team.
Good thing is, Shauna, you now get to pass the baton to anybody else in the room. Looks like Cindy.
I'm going to choose Sungai if she's there.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sungai. I'm the general manager for the newest hotel in Aurora, the Microsoft by Wyndham. I would describe our organizational culture as entrepreneurial. And Shauna, I'm going to ask you to pick somebody else because I'm not able to see who's on, if you don't mind.
Hey, I will take Cindy.
Hi, my name is Cindy Kennedy. I'm with Thermogenics in Aurora. We manufacture boilers here. And I would describe our culture as transitional.
Get to choose somebody, Cindy.
Oh, I get to choose somebody. Heidi.
Hi there, I'm Heidi. I'm the Executive Director of Hope House Community Hospice. We're a charity here in Aurora. And I would describe our culture as caring. Oh, and I should choose somebody.
Yeah.
Okay, next person on my screen is Caroline. Caroline Tressler.
Sorry. Okay. I'm a mortgage agent and I work for NDLC, which is Neighborhood Dominion Lending. And we're the biggest lending institution in Canada. That's as far as I've got.
What word would you use to describe your organization's culture?
Very active.
Okay. All right. You get to choose somebody else in the room.
How about Trish?
Hi, how is everybody? I'm glad to be here today. My name is Trisha Drew. I do apologize for not having a camera on my desktop. So you are going to see a black screen. I am the Human Resource Manager at KTI Limited here in Aurora, and I would definitely describe our culture as friendly.
You get to
And
choose next. There you go.
I'm going to choose Brooke Balazic because she works with us here.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I apologize. I don't have my camera on as well. My name is Brooke Balzick. I also work at KTI Limited as the new human resources generalist, and I would describe our culture as very welcoming. So I will go ahead and pass it along to Patty.
My name's Patty, and I work at CP Flexible Packaging here in Aurora. I'm the HR generalist and the payroll and benefits administrator. And right now our culture is evolving.
I like these words, transitional, evolving.
And I'm going to pass it on to my colleague Sharon. I think she's still here. Maybe
I don't actually see her on the screen anymore, Patty.
Oh, okay. She was here.
She was.
Yeah. Angela, if you haven't gone.
Hey there, I'm Angela Tucker. I own the York Dance Academy, and I would describe our culture as friendly, supportive, and active.
Thank you. You get to pass the baton, Angela.
Pass the baton. Let me see, who haven't we heard from? Pam?
Hi, I'm Pam. I work at Avant Imaging and Integrated Media in Aurora. We're a printing company, and I would describe our culture as engaging and progressive.
Pass the baton, Pam.
I don't see anybody else on my screen that I don't think, Christina?
Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Carter, and I am the HR manager here at Thermogenics. I work with Cindy, who is also on the call. And I would describe our culture as respectful.
Thank you. Who do you want to pass it to, Christina?
I think, I guess if the last person I would think is Sandra. Have you gone?
I haven't, so I'll go. So I'm Sandra, and I'm the events manager at the Aurora Chamber. And I would describe our culture, especially over the last couple of years, as innovative. And I think Roshni might be the last person that we are to hear from, or two more, sorry. Roshni?
Hi, everyone. Sorry for coming in late. We had a production meeting that ran late. I have recently joined Clean River Recycling here in Aurora. A small company, but mighty. Gosh, they're mighty. They are very involved with their staff, and the way to describe it here is passionate and very evolving. So yeah, sorry again for coming in late.
Okay. So you're going to laugh because I'm going to say, can Aurora Public Library go next? Because I don't know what your name is.
Sorry, I didn't change the little title on the Zoom. My name is Maida. I'm the HR coordinator at Aurora Public Library. I would describe our culture right now as adapting.
It sounds familiar. A lot of libraries are adapting right now. So, and then is it, I want to make sure, is it Divine? Am I saying your name correctly?
Yes, that's the name of the company. I have it on there. Hi, my name is Lillian Loom. I'm the manager, the director here at Divine Favor Healthcare Staffing. We support seniors in the community with whatever need they have. So our culture here is being supportive, caring, and passionate.
Okay, great. Is everyone gone now? I just want to make sure I've covered off everyone.
Did
I think so. Right? Is everyone gone?
Yes, I went.
Yeah. Okay, so let me share my screen with you again. Okay, so the intent behind today is we're going to talk about the concept of organizational culture, and we'll talk about how to build a strong culture coming out of the pandemic. And we're going to just start talking about how do you actually look at creating a plan for ensuring that you've got that good culture coming out of all of this. So if we look at defining culture and looking at what is this whole thing called culture? Everybody talks about it all the time. I will tell you, culture's taken a really hard hit during the pandemic, and a lot of organizations are now turning their mind to how do we reinvigorate the culture in our organizations to get people moving again, get people motivated, get them productive, get them engaged in the organization. And so the whole concept of culture is, I want you to kind of think about it as a feeling, and it's really all around us. It's what defines us. It really extends to everything that we do throughout the course of the day. And it's really defined as a collaborative thing. So you take a look at organizations, people come together to build culture. It's not one person says, hey, this is going to be the culture moving forward. Everybody has to live and breathe it. Okay. It's people coming together to form a culture. And so you think about some of the most famous brands, who have really, really strong cultures. People have come together to build that culture. It wasn't somebody one day just said, oh, you know what, pie in the sky, you know what, the sky's purple today. I think that we're going to have our organizational culture be X. It doesn't form that way. Okay. It's a lot more organic. And so I want you to kind of think about culture as it's a connection people have, okay, to the company. It's how people are treated when they walk in the door. It's the relationship that people have with their peers. Okay, it's all of these things. It's how people are, how happy they are at work. It's how they actually feel when they're at work. I don't know if anybody has ever had an organization that they've worked for where you kind of go there every day and it's a bit of a tough slog and you're like, oh, I don't feel like this is home for me. That means you don't fit into the culture. So whatever culture's there it's not a connection point for you for whatever reason. Okay. And so it's the values that people hold, and it's in every single person that works in an organization. So the strongest organizational cultures, they have all of these elements infused into it. How many of you feel right now that you're like, yeah, we got all this down pat? How many of you are like, we have a bit of work to do? How many of you are like, oh my gosh, we have a lot of work to do? Coming out of the pandemic, we have to do everything differently. Okay, we can't just expect that our organizational culture is going to continue to be the same as it's always been, because it's always been that way. We have to evolve it. And that's why I loved hearing the word like we're transitional, we're evolving, because the culture right now in our organizations need to really blend with how we're treating our teams. I said to clients very early on in the pandemic, I said, retention is going to be based on how you treat your people throughout this pandemic. And I said this probably March of 2020 to people. And I said, if you treat your people poorly throughout this pandemic, they're going to walk out the door when it's done. And if you treat them really well throughout the pandemic, you've got a sense of loyalty then. But what we had to do also is evolve the culture at the exact same time. Okay, so now people again are starting to reinvigorate the culture because it's now kind of top of mind, saying, okay, we were all at home, we're now going hybrid, or we're all staying remote, or we never stopped going into the office because we're manufacturing. So now what? This pandemic thing is, going, on, we're now hitting the top end of it. We're going to start coming down from it. What does that mean for our culture? A lot of you have probably heard about the Great Resignation. How many of you have had increased resignations in the last 6 months? Just by a raise of hands. Okay, a few of you. Okay, that would be quite normal to experience that. It's just part of what's going on in organizations right now. Can we control it? We can control it by having good organizational culture, but really strong engagement from our teams. Okay, so when we talk about employee engagement, because I want to layer on that as well, it's not just culture and isolation that we need to be looking at. We have to be looking at the concept of employee engagement. And so when we talk about employee engagement, we're really talking about like this emotional commitment that somebody has towards your organization and towards the goals of the organization. So they are totally bought in. They've got this wicked attitude. They've got this positive feeling about your organization. They're working with you to get to where they need to be and where the organization needs to be. And so I want you to kind of think about it with the lens of it's discretionary effort that somebody puts into their work. So when I say discretionary effort, a lot of people are like, well, people put in time here. I'm like, it's not about time. It's about the whole concept of discretionary effort and how much energy somebody puts into their work. Okay, so that's the concept of employee engagement at play. And so if you think about it, employee engagement is one person. Okay, it's my feeling towards my company that I work for. It's my emotional connection that I have. Culture is a collective feeling that gets established through work done through a group of individuals. Does that make sense in terms of the difference between them? So for those of you that are in HR, you're like, yeah, know it already, feel good about it. For those of you that aren't in HR, it's like, oh, okay, now it's starting to make sense in some cases. And so I want you to just know that employee engagement is not any of these things. Okay, a lot of people wonder, you know, oh, okay, so employee engagement is really about how happy people are at work. That's actually not true. People can still be happy just because they're happy people. It doesn't mean that they're engaged because they may not buy into the goals. They may not have this connection to the organization. They just happen to be happy people. Okay, it's also not how satisfied an employee is. Okay, it's not how motivated an employee is. They may be really, really motivated or not motivated. It does not gauge engagement levels at all. And it's not about entertaining employees. So a lot of people will say to me, Jody, I understand why employee engagement's low. We have barbecues. We send, you know, through the pandemic, we've been sending people, you know, little treat boxes and things like that. And I'm like, while we think that a key to an employee's engagement level is through their stomachs, it's actually not true. Okay, that doesn't necessarily gauge employee engagement. It's the connection that people have. It's that feeling that people have when they come to work every single day, that they've got this connection to the organization. They believe in the organization. They believe in the people they're working with, their leader. That's what builds employee engagement. Okay. And I had to throw in the last one, which is it's not a fluffy HR term, which is what a lot of, you know, non-HR people think is it's, oh yeah, it's this like fluffy HR thing. You know, we throw around this employee engagement thing. It's actually a thing. Okay, and we work with business owners, small business owners, large business owners, and to get them thinking about the fact that it's not a fluffy HR term, a lot of them are already sold on it. Okay, they already know that it's really truly a thing because they get better productivity out of people when they're engaged. They get better results when people are engaged. They get even better results when their culture aligns to how the people are feeling. Okay, does that make sense? So far, we're good? Okay. So there's really kind of three types of engagement, and I like to talk about engagement and culture together, and you'll see me kind of bouncing back and forth between them. So I want you to think about the fact that there's engaged employees, okay? There are disengaged employees and there are actively disengaged employees. And so I want to share a whiteboard with you here for a second. Okay. I'm going to draw a picture for you, and I'm just going to forewarn you, my drawing is really bad. Okay, so just kind of bear with me, but I do want to kind of show you my my concept around employee engagement. And I'll walk you through what I'm drawing because it may not come at first glance in terms of what I'm actually drawing for you. Okay, can everyone see the whiteboard that I've got up right now? Okay. This is a boat. Again, I'm a brutal drawer. Just think about this being a boat for today, okay? And these are my stick people, okay? So think about these as team members in your organization. I'm gonna draw 10 of them for you. That's 4 so far. You're gonna go back to your peers once you get off this webinar and say, we attended this webinar, but boy, that person has no idea how to draw. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, okay, 10. So if we think about kind of a typical team of 10, okay, so think about your organization, typical team of 10. How many of you how many people do you think are kind of happy to come to work every day, doing their job, not necessarily pushing the envelope, but they do a good job? How many people out of 10 on the boat, how many of your team members do you think are kind of just doing the job, coming to work, good at the job? Any idea?
4?
So it's actually really close. So it's actually approximately 5. Okay, so you've got about 5 people in the middle of your boat, because those people are generally at the middle of your boat. Okay, they come to work every day, they're doing a good job. Are they putting in a lot of discretionary effort like we talked about? Okay, so not time, but effort. They don't know, you know, they're not necessarily feeling that profound connection to the organization. So you've got generally about 5 out of your 10 people, okay? And so what I want you to think about these individuals as is scenery watchers, okay? So these are our scenery watchers. What do you think the people at that front of your boat are doing? Let's talk about the front of the boat. Who are they?
Are they the ones that are the leaders?
They're the ones that are the leaders, yeah. So what do you think they're doing?
Well, they're probably giving like 110%.
Okay, they're given 110%, not necessarily in time, but in effort, right? Okay.
Right.
What else are they doing?
They're managing all of the rest of the people in the boat?
They're the ones who are paddling. So they've got these paddles in their hands and they're like, hey, everybody, can you please possibly paddle with me? I can't do this alone. I am at the front of this boat. I've got a whole bunch of people behind me. Can you just paddle with me? Okay. So those people are feeling that extreme profound connection to the organization. They are the ones who help build culture, and they're the ones who help exemplify culture. Okay. So we call those our paddlers. So let me just type that in here so we've got it. Okay, paddlers. Even better if I could spell today. All right. So these are our paddlers, okay? Who are the people at our back of our boat? You got 2 of them. Who are they?
Along for the ride.
They're definitely along for the ride. Whether they should be or not is questionable. So I'm going to draw something. You can tell me, because my drawing's so atrocious, you may not even know what I'm drawing here. Okay, so. All right, so what are they? What are they doing?
Fishing.
They're throwing an anchor over.
Oh.
Okay. I really need to learn how to draw, people. I'm so sorry. So they're really throwing over an anchor, and they're basically saying, you know what? I don't feel a connection to the organization. I don't love what we do here. I don't believe in my leader. I don't believe in my teammates. And so I'm going to kind of dig my heels in, and I'm going to just make it miserable for people around me. How many of you have people like that in your organization? I can guarantee you most of you have at least one person. Okay, those are our anchors. That's what we call them. We call them anchors. Should they be in the organization? It depends. Can we move them into the middle of the boat so that at least they're scenery watchers, so they're not being disruptive, at least they're doing their jobs? Or can we move them any further on to be paddlers? It varies. Okay, not everybody's going to be able to get there. So these are our anchors. Okay. Oh, where'd my scenery? There it is. Okay. Does this concept make sense to everyone? And these stats are actually pretty true. Okay, so if you look at employee engagement rates, majority of the time you've got this group in the middle, scenery watchers. They can be a bit of fence sitters. So what we look at is, okay, where are people situated on the boat right now? If we want to improve productivity and we want to improve engagement levels, we've got to first tackle engagement. We can't tackle culture first. If we tackle culture first, we don't know what the makeup of our organization is. We have to get more people mobilized, moving in the right direction first, being engaged by the work that they're doing before we can even tackle culture. Because remember, culture is a feeling that people get when they come to work. If we've got majority of the people sitting at the back end of our boat, do you think your culture is going to be a good one? You could have culture. I'm not sure it's the culture you're going to want to have. Okay, so really finding ways to engage people first, making sure that they're way out at that front of that boat, that is what's going to make a difference. So the engagement side actually comes before the culture side. People have to feel like there's a vested interest. They have to feel a connection to the organization. You can't build the culture without it. Okay, so that's why sometimes we say actively to ourselves, like when clients call us and they say, Jody, we've got these really disruptive people at the back of our boat. We have no idea what to do with them. I'm like, it may be time for a shift. Like, it may be time to get them off the boat. And they're like, are you sure? I'm like, well, it depends on you. Like, if you're trying to move the organization where you want, where you want the organization to be, and you're not moving because you've got these people who keep sabotaging things, it's probably time to make a shift. Now, we do education sessions on this whole boat concept with organizations, and we actually talk to employees about it. And we actually say to them, we want you to assess where you're at on the boat. So I do have an assessment for you. If you want, you can email us at the end and I'll flip you out the assessment. Okay. You can use it with your teams right away. You can just hand it out to them to say, okay, where are you at on the boat? It's a really good assessment. It doesn't take long. And then you can talk about it as a team. Okay. It's one of those tools that I love to give to clients because it gives a bit of, it's a bit of an eye-opening experience for people to really say, shoot, I'm not happy right now. Like, I'm not happy in my role. And now I understand why. It's a personal choice. And we did this once with one client, and we had one person who I didn't even give the assessment. And at the end of the session, they just like quietly put up their hand. They had been the longest serving employee, 25 plus years. They kind of put up their hand, only 21 employees. Okay. Very small organization. They quietly just like, Jody. And I said, yes. And she said, I've been an anchor for the entire time I've been here. And I looked at her and I knew she had been because I had heard stories. And I said, so what does that mean for you? And she said, I need to change the way I am. And since then, so this was, I'm going to say 4 years ago, since then, it's been a polar opposite shift for this person. Actively engaged in team meetings, always wanting to participate in things, always volunteering for things. So you see, people can all of a sudden recognize, oh my gosh, I'm bringing down the rest of the team, and start to shift their own behaviors because we've brought an awareness to them that they didn't even have before. Sometimes it's people just recognizing the fact that, oh gosh, I'm in a bit of a rut right now. I feel like I'm not, comfortable in this space, and modifying their own behaviors so that they can get engaged. And so if you're thinking, how many of you are going through any changes right now in your organization? Yeah, people are like, yeah, every day, Jody, lots of change going on here. What I want you to think about is when you're looking at change initiatives, and I'm going to add to this diagram for you. So what I want you to kind of think about is your scenery watchers. Let me just want to draw instead of type. Okay. So you've got your anchors here at the back. Okay. You've got your scenery watchers who are in the middle. Okay. And you've got your paddlers who are out front. So what I want you to kind of think about is when you're going through any change, okay, in your organization, what's going to happen naturally is that your anchors are going to feel like you are pushing them towards a goal. Okay. So imagine the goal is over here. Okay. So this is our goal down here. They're going to feel like you are pushing them heavily towards that goal. They're not going to be happy if you're pushing them because they are not wanting to change right now. They're not wanting to adopt any differences that are happening. They're going to be very change adverse. Okay. The people in the middle, so your scenery watchers, okay, these are the people here who have hit comfort zone before. And so they're going to kind of sit back and they're going to say, so whatever's happening right now, whatever transitions are happening, whatever changes are happening, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to wait and see what happens before I put both of my feet in. And so they're going to be a little bit hesitant. So they're not necessarily going to buy into it right out of the gate. They're going to be the ones who are a little bit hesitant, not so willing to share right away that they're going to be out front paddling with you. Okay. So what I want when I'm working on change initiatives with clients and we're going through like organizational transformations and things, what I want is people feeling a pull towards a goal. Okay, these are our paddlers. Our paddlers feel that pull towards the goal because they're excited for what's to come. Those are the people you want on the team. So a lot of it is, how do you sell it in? How do you make people get excited for these opportunities? You've got to have a high level of paddlers on your team in order for people to buy into it. Okay, so if you're thinking about all the transformations that you're going through right now, think about it in that context of how do people feel. So the assessment that we can send out to you actually has questions about change on it as well. So if you are going through a lot of transformation right now, it's good for people to do a bit of an assessment of themselves to figure out, okay, am I hesitant about this change, or am I actually running out in front as well? I hate dragging people behind me. And so when you think about, okay, we've got this great initiative we're working on, it's like, oh my gosh, come on. I was just on a walk with my dog, and I will tell you, my dog is the slowest walker in the world. And I'm like, let's go, let's go. And that's what you don't want to feel. You don't want to feel like you have to pull people along to get them to be productive. You don't want to have to pull them along to feel that they're engaged in the work. You want them to just naturally feel that way. And so doing an assessment as to where people are sitting on the boat, because it is a very conscious decision that people can make. People can choose where they're at on the boat. They can say to themselves, you know what? I'm actually happy sitting in the middle here. I'm going to just wait and see what happens. I'm doing a good job. I'm not getting reprimanded, so I should be good to go. Other people say, no, I'm actually not happy sitting here. I want to be out front and I want to be paddling along. People have conscious choices to make. And what we found even over the last couple of years is even leaders themselves are finding that they are migrating from the very front of that boat into the middle and even into the back because they're exhausted. Okay, so we've seen that transition happen. And because we specialize in leader development, we've had lots of leaders who just can't even manage with the pandemic right now. And they're just trying to sort through where are they at on the boat and what do they need to get out of the back end of the boat, because they know it's going to bring down the rest of their team. They know engagement levels will be low if they're not engaged themselves. Okay, so that's that connection point. Again, if we're really talking about how do you build productive teams, you have to have an engaged leader at the helm to do that. If you don't have an engaged leader, it's going to be really, really hard to get there. Any questions so far? Okay. I'm going to just save this drawing. Okay. Let me do a new, I'm going to go back to our previous. Okay, how many of you see a slide deck now? Just want to make sure I'm going between these. Okay, perfect. Okay. So if we look at the concept of culture then, okay, I'm going to bring you back to the concept that, again, employee engagement is focused on individuals. It's a moment in time. How happy am I at a moment in time? And so we do a lot of pulse surveys with clients because what we want to know is throughout the year, how are people feeling? Because if you do it once per year, you find out once per year how people are feeling. 6 months from then, they may have something major happen in the organization. We don't even know how they're feeling after it. And so you can always do pulse surveys, which has 5 to 10 questions, ask people how they're doing. That's that whole concept of engagement for the person, okay? How engaged am I at work? When we talk about culture, again, now we're saying it's a blend of individuals. It's our collective beliefs coming together. It's the behaviors that we exhibit on a day-to-day basis. And it's a very organic thing. Okay, and that's why when I ask you what's one word to describe your culture, and I hear things like friendly, progressive, innovative, you know, evolving, those are all things that you use to describe your culture. And it's probably this organic thing that changes, it evolves, it morphs into new things as the world continues to change, as the organization changes. But what it does do is it actually creates thought processes that we hold collectively, feelings and actions that we hold collectively. That's what creates culture. Okay. And a lot of the time, culture is around what our belief systems are. Okay. What we hold near and dear to ourselves, like how do we want to be treated in our environments? You know, one of you said respectful. right? You have a respectful culture. One of you said a caring culture. Those are all things that should resonate because it's a feeling that people have. And so when we hire people, and we'll talk about this in module 3, when we're looking at hiring people, what we want to make sure is that they're a strong culture fit for us. Because what you want to do is hire to the values or the belief systems that you have embedded in your organization. That's what you want to be hiring for. And so culture is, again, those sets of feelings or behaviors that gets exuded by people. I know I used to actually work at Walmart Canada, and I worked there for 3 years. And they have such a strong culture. And it was really based on 4 key principles. And those key principles were lived and breathed daily by every single associate at head office. And it was really interesting to see how they hired people. I've never gone through such a rigorous interview process. I went through 7 rounds of interviews. Okay, so some of you are like, 7 rounds of interviews. Yes, so for my fellow HR peers, 7 rounds of interviews, each an hour and a half in length. Okay, and when I walked out, I remember it as clear as day. I walked out of the final interview, it was with the head of HR, and I'm like, there is no way I got that job. I had a brutal sinus infection. He had just gotten off of a plane from South Africa, and I was miserable. He was miserable. I'm like, there's no way I got that job. And I got the phone call from the head of recruiting for Walmart. And he's like, you got the job? I'm like, no, I think you're joking with me because there's no way that I got that job. And he said, you lived and breathed the values that we're looking for. He said, that's what every single interview, that's what we were testing every single interview. Okay. And so that's what happens is you test for those things through the hiring process. You want to make sure teams are going to mesh together really well, that people are going to fit into your culture really well. Now, if your culture is not well defined, that's the work we need to do. Okay. That's that work that you need to kind of figure out. Because again, it's a feeling that gets evoked. And again, the employee engagement side's got to come first. So let's talk about the importance of having a strong culture. So my feeling is, do we actually care? Should we care about culture? My answer is absolutely yes. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here today. So that's good. We think about the concept of culture and why we should actually care. It's for all of these reasons here. Okay. It really talks about how we attract people. If you don't have a strong culture, people aren't going to come and work for you. Okay. It's how we retain people. If we don't have this feeling that gets evoked every time people work with us, they're not going to stay. Why would they? If they're miserable coming to work, what would make them even want to stay in an organization? Okay. It's how people perform. If we don't have a strong culture, people aren't going to perform well. They're not going to behave well. You know, they're not going to be, I talk about health. Okay. And you're probably like, healthy, like how healthy we are as an organization, how healthy you are. Okay. The mind and the body and the spirit, right? Like you think about everything working in tandem with one another. Really it comes down to culture is everything around us. It's everything, even when people are remote, culture should still reside deeply within the team. Okay, for those of you that are remote. And I will tell you, Danson and I have only actually met each other in person 2 times since he joined. That's it. Yet I will tell you, we laugh every single day together. We intentionally get on the phone. If we don't get on the phone every day, he's like, oh, hello, stranger. Or he'll say something like really funny and snarky because he knows I'll just send something snarky back to him. That's a culture. Okay. That's something that we've developed on our team because we like having that warmth, like that environment where there's warmth and caring for one another. And when we don't see each other on a day-to-day basis, we kind of miss one another. That's the kind of environment that we have. That's intentional. Okay, we've created that intentionally with one another. And while it's just the 2 of us, what we find is that you can make culture with one person. It's a thought and a feeling that people have. You don't have to have this huge organization to have a great culture. You can have small organizations that have deep-rooted cultures that are really, really deeply embedded within every single team member. And even in my interview process with Danson, I wanted to gauge fit. I wanted to gauge, does he have similar values to me? Are we going to create this great environment for us to both thrive in? It's not about me owning the business. It's about us thriving together as two people coming together to do good work every day, right? If you think about, culture, again, it's behaviors, it's actions, it's feelings that come and they get deeply embedded into people. So let's do a little bit of work together. So what I like to do is do some group breakouts. We have the ability to do group breakouts, right, Sandra? I think so. Let's see. We do. Beautiful. Okay. So what I want to do is I'm going to split you out into some group breakouts. How many of you have gone into group breakouts before? Okay, so I'm going to tell you what you're going to expect for those of you who have never been in a group breakout. So this is the main room, okay, where we're all collaborating together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move you into smaller rooms where you can have more quaint conversations, okay? And so in those more quaint conversations, feel free to just open up and talk to your peers, because this is about brainstorming, okay? This is about us having conversations so that we can do some planning. When I put out the group breakouts to you, you're going to get a little invite that says join the group breakout. You're going to click on that, and that's going to take you into a smaller group where you can start your discussion. Okay, does that sound reasonable for everyone? Okay, good. So here's what we're going to be chatting about. All right, so I want you to think about, what does your organization need to consider doing differently to build a strong culture? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break us out into two different rooms. Danson's going to lead one group. I'm going to lead the other. Okay. And we're going to just write down the ideas that you're talking about. And then we're going to come back to the main room and we're just going to debrief the ideas with everybody. Okay. Does that sound like a good plan?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. Super. So we're at 12:47 right now. So let's do 20-ish minutes in our group breakout. So five after one, Danson. Does that sound reasonable? Yeah. Okay. Excellent. All right. So let's break you out into your group breakouts. Let me stop sharing here. Okay. Can you remind me whose phone number is 289-552-5987? Heidi, is that you? Okay, I just want to make sure I put you with your phone number, okay? Because sometimes that's a little bit of a glitch in the system. So, all right, so now you're together. Anybody else call in through the phone line? I think everybody else is just online, right? Okay, super. Okay, so Danton, you're in room 1. I'll go into room 2, okay? All right, so we'll see everybody in about 20 minutes.
Are you in a room? Okay.
The other group is yet to join.
They should be coming back in a second.
Oh.
All right. So how did everybody's conversations go? How do people feel?
Good.
Good?
Yep.
All right, let's talk about what your group came up with, Danson.
Okay, I took the notes.
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
So I'll just start throwing out what we were talking about. So clarity, managers, leaders providing what expectations are. So being very clear as to what is expected from employees and the other way around as well. Meeting with staff one-on-one as opposed to, a group setting. Being more inclusive, so bringing employees back together eventually as a group, as a whole. A lot of businesses have had new employees join, over the last couple of years, and employees don't know one another. So it's having that opportunity to bring everybody back together again. Continuing to engage employees, making them feel helped, present, finding out what they need to, if they're working virtually or whether it's hybrid, whatever they need to make themselves feel successful. Creating that shared culture. So one of the organizations has a lot of businesses that have been around for quite a while, and then a lot of new employees. So it's it's sharing the experience between the two different groups. And then keeping everybody engaged in the loop, whether there's projects, just having that open connection.
Okay. All right. So our group, some similar things, talking, one person, their organization just went through an acquisition about 1.5 years ago. And so it's changing the dynamics now because it was family run. Now it's going into the corporate space. And so trying to figure out what that longer term culture is going to look like, whether or not it's going to go to match the US parent, whether or not they're going to be able to maintain some of that individuality. So really in flux right now and just trying to sort through things. So we talked about if there's going to be a shift in values, how you can actually roll out values. What we talked about is slow and steady. And so if you're ever interested in rolling out new values in your organizations, what you can always do is, let's say you have 5 values, 5 brand new values, and you want people to attach to them really well. You want people to understand them. I was talking about, yeah, you could easily send out, a 1-pager with like these shiny new values, say, here are our new values. But it's another thing to roll it out, like roll out one new value once a month or once every, 6 to 8 weeks, and do a slow and steady build so people understand what the value is, what it means to them personally. You can find free resources online to educate people on, TED Talks, YouTube videos, articles, just to get people thinking about the values more deeply than just like, hey, here's our 1-pager of new values now, yay, 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 buy into them. People don't buy into them because they don't tie to them. And so we have to teach them how to tie to those values. So we talked about that. We talked about getting people to interact more. So the communication side, so very similar, Sandra, to what your group came up with, is really how do you get people connecting more than they have before? We were talking about the fact that work has become very transactional in nature, and we've lost a bit of the emotional connection that we used to have. So reinvigorating that through things like communication, lunches, team building activities, just getting people talking again. And even when we can get people into the office, so let's say you start going into your hybrid model, it's really looking at what can your environment handle. So can you bring everybody in on the same day and have everybody working from home on the same day, just to create that high levels of collaboration again. Higher levels of collaboration are going to be important for you to rebuild your culture if you're interested in shifting it from where it is now, because one thing that unfortunately the pandemic has done is it's created some very antisocial behaviors and getting people to work very much by themselves all the time. And so just having, people who can come together on a regular basis. I was telling my group that we have one client who does exercise classes once a week on a Monday morning, and they all exercise together. You don't have to have your camera on if you don't want to. It's totally your call. I know I had my camera on for the longest time with them when I was joining regularly, and I just had a great time. We would laugh together, and we would just have it was just a jovial time. They have maintained their culture so strongly. They've not lost one person during the pandemic, which is amazing that they haven't lost anybody. And in fact, they're continuing to grow, which is really, really good. So we talked about that. And we just talked again, just about that connection, like having team meetings, having regular touch points with people. I think a lot of how do we build a strong culture is the connection that we have with people and making it feel like we're living and breathing those values. If we believe we're a caring environment, then we should be exemplifying those behaviors, which means we need to be communicating those behaviors and getting people together regularly to create those behaviors so that they are more deeply valued as we're kind of coming out of this ridiculous time. Any questions based on the conversations that you had within either group? Or things that you're interested in talking about a little bit more? Okay, hopefully we came up with some good ideas that you can, they're palatable ideas you can just start going and doing right away. I'd like to you to leave these sessions with some easy, quick wins that don't cost a lot of money. I don't believe in spending a lot of money to rebuild culture. I believe in it just being organic and just happening. Shauna, go ahead.
Out of curiosity, what were the 4 Walmart values?
So respect for the individual was one. You're testing my memory now. I haven't worked there in a really long time. I haven't worked there since 2013. So I'm like, respect for the individual was one of them. I'm gonna send it to you once I. Respect for the individual was one of the most primary ones. That's the one that was so deeply embedded for me. And for those of you who don't know Walmart very well, we actually had a 3-meter rule. And so if you're within 3 meters of somebody and you don't acknowledge them, that would be categorized as not respectful for the individual. So that would be against one of their primary values. And so I know, and I'm a bit of, one of my biggest pet peeves is when you're passing somebody in the hallway and they look down instead of looking at you. It's one of those things. It doesn't resonate for me. I don't live that value at all by just kind of ignoring people. And I guess my mother said when I was little, I used to say hi to everybody. And so I guess that's kind of just stuck with me through my life. And I lived that and breathed that value. And when I would see senior executives, because I was in a leader development role, when I would see senior executives pass people in the hallway, and if they didn't say hello to people, I would actually go knock on their door after to say, I just want you to know I observed this today. And they're like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah. I said, you just need to be aware because I know you live and breathe these values. And I know you probably had a lot on your mind, but imagine what that person walking by you felt. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I feel awful about it. And it's just about how do you how do you encourage others to live those values, right? They're the value system. Call people out on it when you're, not necessarily seeing people living them on a day-to-day basis. And so, yeah, when I worked there, respect for the individual was always the one that stood out for me the most.
So I just Googled them while you were saying that. And so it's service for the customer, respect for the individual, strive for excellence, and act with integrity.
Thanks, Christina. Yeah, and what we'll talk about, if you come to some of the other sessions that we're doing, we'll talk a little bit about servant leadership, probably in the last session that we do together, and just what serving others looks like, and another very strong belief system that people at Walmart have, which is part of service to the individuals. Okay, so let me share my screen with you one more time. Okay, you let me know when you can see my screen. Good. Okay, super. So we always like to kind of do some key takeaways when you leave sessions with us, kind of some food for thought. So one is determine your role in helping champion a culture shift and high levels of engagement with your own team and with just generally in the organization. Partner with your peers and other champions. And I do believe it's really important to create people who have contagious energy like you do. And so if you have this strong belief system of having a strong culture, being fully engaged, you got to find champions who are at that front of the boat paddling with you. We have one client, which I absolutely loved when they did this. They actually said, one person came up to me after we did the boat methodology with them. And it was one employee who came up to me and said, do you think I could actually spearhead this whole paddling methodology? And I said, okay, what do you want to do? He said, I want to buy little mini paddles for everybody. And I said, okay. And so he did. He bought keychains for everybody. The owner of the organization said it's totally fine. And he went around handing them out to people and said, will you paddle with me? Every single person he hand delivered this paddle to say, will you paddle with me? And it was one of those things where he created champions. And this was just an employee. He was actually a mechanic. And he's the one that spearheaded this entire initiative through the company, 45 people, and really got engagement levels to a new level. Their culture was really badly damaged. People were bad mouthing each other all the time. They were swearing at each other all the time. And so we went through the boat methodology because I'm like, okay, there's nothing more simplistic than this boat methodology. And so can we get people translating into positive behaviors? And I will tell you, it worked famously. It was beautiful. And I'll show you. I sometimes show this. Hold on one second. I can take it off of my bookshelf carefully, oops, without dropping everything. So I keep this by it's visible to me all the time. It's my two paddles. I wish they weren't connected, but they are, but I kind of like the fact that they're connected, and they just sit on I have a wire file folder thing that I just use a magnet on them, and I just have it there all the time. So in my peripheral, I see it every single day that I'm sitting at this desk. And so it's just a gentle reminder that we got to paddle together. So finding those champions that can work with you will help shift the culture. You can't do it alone. If you think you can do it alone, I'm going to tell you right now, you won't be able to. Okay, you got to do it with your partners. Find some partners in crime, okay? And do it for the benefit of culture, okay? And then create some small goals for you and the organization, and then celebrate whatever wins you've got coming out of it. Sometimes we forget to celebrate the win. Make sure you celebrate those small little wins. They mean a lot to people. So when people are achieving things, when you're shifting, when you're going through changes, when you're going through acquisitions, where you're changing things, when you're changing structure, process, all of those things, celebrate the small wins. People really pay attention to that. Sometimes we wait too long to celebrate, and then people are like, you're celebrating now? Like, what about the things that happened 4 months ago when we had all these little small milestones that we hit? Those are the things we need to celebrate. Don't wait for that big, I call it the kahuna win. Don't wait for the kahuna win. Do the small little things along the way. Okay. So I love doing this activity with people when we finish sessions. So I want you to think about, as you leave here today, what are you going to do differently? So I want you to think about one thing you want to stop doing because you learned something new today. one thing you're going to start doing because you liked what somebody in the room said today, and one thing you're going to continue to do because you already know it's working for you. Okay, this is your own action planning. You do not need to tell us this. This is right when you get off the line with us today. This is for your own, food for thought, things you're going to kind of work through on your own. Okay. All right. So what questions do you have for myself, Danson, anybody else in the room?
Jody, where could I find your email address?
Okay, yes, let me scoot forward here. Okay, there you go. You can contact me if you want me to flip you over for some stuff. Just let me know what you need me to send you, and I'll send you over if it's the boat methodology, the assessment, if there's team building activities, whatever you want, you just let me know.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
No problem.
And when I send out the presentation, I'll include Jody's information as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Good. So any other questions before we kind of end our session for today? Okay, well, I'm hoping you all found this valuable and that you had a good time. You had some time to just chill for the last hour and a half and just get together with some of your peers and have a good chat. If you need anything at all, you just let me know, and I'm hoping that we'll get to see each other next week.
Actually, can I just ask one question quickly? Sorry. When will the invitations come out for the other 2 sessions that will be coming up?
So they're on our website right now, Christina, and I will send, I'll also include the link to register, okay?
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. And Jody, thank you so much. Wonderful as always. Great to see you. I just love the paddle idea. But yeah, as I mentioned, I will be sending out Jody's presentation and a recording of the session. And I'll send a link for the next sessions as well. So we hope that you can join us next week. Will be great. It's going to be a deep look at diversity, equity, and inclusion. So looking forward to that one, Jody.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. It's good to see you
Thanks
all.
so much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again. Okay.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.